Hey, how you guys doing? This is producer from Brothers Comics. Welcome to our unnamed House of Dragon recap show. We haven't gotten a name to it yet. Brother Vivas had one called what did you call it?
Well, I had forgotten the cleverness of our name with
Yeah.
I Know What You Did Last Summer. And so it made sense to me that I know what you did before last summer, since
Yeah.
it's the prequel.
Yeah. I had Brothers on Dragons. Uh, but that was about it. We are ready to be heard again, y'all. It's been what,
3 years.
3 years at this point since the finale of Game of
Game of
Thrones, if
Thrones.
you'd like to call it that. And it's
It was the
probably been
finale, all right.
it's been
Uh,
3 years of us trying to heal from it, essentially, because it ended so poorly. So when they announced this prequel that got actually made, they made a whole nother prequel and buried it. They made or decided to make this prequel. We kind of got into this idea that we were going to, recap it and, to put the cards on the table. That Game of Thrones podcast is one of the final podcasts we did with Female Perspective before she passed. So this is a little way to honor her in that regard. If you can see the new logo, if you're on YouTube, it's not fully finished yet. My big head's in the way anyway. You can see her overlooking us as we watch for her. So this is going to be a part of that. On the line tonight, it's Grand Maester Beavis, man. What's going on?
I'm back, I guess.
Yeah, man. Ready to be heard again.
I haven't, other than I'll occasionally hit some clickbait to see George R. R. Martin clown for not having the book finished. And other than like that and like re-listening to the finale podcast, I haven't given a single minute or a single dollar to the Game of Thrones franchise since that finale.
Yeah, it's been difficult. Every time I want to consider going back and rewatching it, I remember the finale. And I'm just like, I can't do it. I was trying to get, my son kind of into it. He'll listen to me. Well, I was like, you would like it, the beginning parts of it. It's got mystery, intrigue, and titties. Like, I mean, you should get into that kind of thing at 17 years old. But he was kind of resistant. Hutch, anything with Game of Thrones since it went off?
no, I was all in 3
We
years
know.
ago,
Yes.
and my house was full of flags and banners, and I bought Game of Thrones Monopoly, and I bought all the seasons except season 8.
It's something else. So the idea of a prequel so soon after the original ended is, I mean, that's more of a now thing, where it was like, oh well, I know it just went off a few years ago, but we got to get something back out there to kind of get the taste out of folks' mouth. So I think this is
It's
their
about the money.
entry. Well, of course, it's always about the money, but this is their entry
our
into
taste.
this. So we're gonna jump into this episode. I didn't get the title. Anybody got the title of this episode? Is it called Pilot? That's usually the first episode of shows calling Pilot. I don't know. I don't
Wikipedia
watch.
activate.
Yeah, I don't watch really any shows on HBO really that are HBO originals or whatever. So like currently, not like old shows, but to hear the the sound of HBO coming on, I was like, oh okay. And then in the opening, if you listen to our I Know What You Did Last Summer podcast, our recap of Game of Thrones, it's the return of the N-word, y'all, violence, but also nudity. So we'll get some of that in this particular episode. Although I just a note of mine here on like page 2 or 3, feels a little dirty watching this show. And not because of the nudity. It just feels a little bastardized, right?
Yeah, and the other rating that this one had was the strong sexual content was the other thing that got on there.
Yeah.
I will say that I didn't feel like the nudity added anything, and it felt like it
No.
was tacked on just to keep the reputation of the show.
Correct. Yeah. And I would also say one of my notes in here says, it's like, man, this is pretty violent or not that violent until, and then it was just like, oh yeah, we got to hit that button too and really turn up the violent part.
It felt pasted on too. If everything felt kind of like, well, let's do this, just to keep the old show kind of close. I thought it was PBS going or Hamlet gone bad.
What's that dude that does the documentaries on PBS, the sports documentaries? I want to say George Burns, but I know it ain't that. Anyway,
Ken Burns.
Ken Burns, thank you. So we get the freaking Lord of the Rings opening here, where we explain everything that's happening up to that point. I was like, shit, is that the fucking elf lady talking too? And we get to the time that the Targaryens are in charge, and they tell us, just to keep you hooked, it's 172 years before the shit happens, with Daenerys. So we got some time and some seasons that we can push this out through. So yeah, that's it. So we get what Rhaenyra, is that her name? The Princess Rhaenyra or something like
Princess
that.
Rhaenyra. Yep.
Yes, Princess Rhaenyra, and then they give you dragons like straight out, like where we had to earn them in the first series. They give you the dragons straight out. Like, look, it is called House of Dragons, so I guess we should have dragons in this shit. Is it an orange dragon? They only colored. Maybe colored that word. Are they only colored in Dungeons and Dragons, or does that mean anything in this world?
The canonical chromatic dragons would be black, white, green, blue, and red.
There's no orange dragons.
Kind of orange, right?
So if it was orange, it might have been a bronze or copper, perhaps. I don't know.
Copper.
But those are historically the good dragons, and also all kind of lame.
Okay, Hutch and I. Go ahead, Hutch.
He got all the dragon stuff down.
Well, I was just gonna say Hutch and I are gonna agree on this part about, look, okay, and I argue with people on Twitter or whatever. People are like, oh, Game of Thrones, man, don't have black people in it because it's historical. No,
it's not historical.
It's not historical.
It's not historical.
You could put fucking anybody on this shit. It really wouldn't matter. Fucking Greedo should be walking around here for all I care.
And he might show up.
Maybe. So the first series is devoid of people of color. We'll use that. But I mean, so Bishop from X-Men now is like one of the first people in there. He's married to the Targaryen, like the Targaryen sister, like the king's sister. I believe that is the thing there. And they got two kids looking like Storm and Shard. And I'm like, the fuck, a lot of X-Men references tonight, y'all. And like, and basically we get the King's Council meeting with, what's the king's name? I can't pronounce his name. Viserys, thank you. And he needs the opening freaking Lord of the Rings thing was like about how he doesn't have like a male heir. And there was like a presentation about who was going to be the heir. And then it's when we get to the show, like his wife is pregnant again, jumping ahead, she's had like 5 non-good births, stillbirths or whatever, and she's pregnant again, and they're hoping that it's going to be a boy. Makes sense. So in celebration of that, they're going to have this big tournament, and the city is going crazy, and there's the triarchy, I think that's what's going on, and they're in the city causing trouble, and so he has to have, is it the Gold Guard?
Well, I don't think the Triarchy was in the city. Those are the pirates from Estros or wherever. They're off. But he was this is the new gold cloaks, which I guess were they white? I guess did they end up being? No, there were gold cloaks in the. Yeah, so the City Watch was the gold cloaks, so this apparently is my first problem with this show.
Is if you take the time, okay, go ahead.
5 minutes.
Start the build. If you go back to the first episode of the Game of Thrones series, and that first episode is so small and contained and measured, and they are just like they're building it slowly, but there's a density of the storytelling that everything you get is building to something or a placeholder for something to come. As opposed to this show already is just like rapid fire. If you remember the names, just like dripping them in. And it's like, it had me on Wikipedia the whole time just to like try and put together the story. Right. So already you're assumed to either know enough about this from having watched the first show, have read the book this is based on, or all the lore, or just be steeped in it anyway. And it's like, I think that's a mistake. just off the bat, just to jump right into it and be like, oh, you guys got this. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. This white-haired chick is somehow going to be related to the white-haired chick 172 years from now.
Yeah.
The fuck Bible ages here. So yeah, it's wild. So yeah, so they're gonna have the not gold cloaks, the city watch. That's going to be a thing. His brother, which is Prince Damon, Damien or Damon.
Damon.
Yeah, he's going to come, into the city. He's sitting on the iron throne when his niece, what's her name again?
Rhaenyra.
Thank you. That's not gonna work for me. Rhaenyra is there. Yeah, she obviously admires her uncle or whatever. Spoiler alert, they're definitely gonna wind up fucking.
Oh, that's awful.
And so in the book she's 8, and I guess she's a teenager in this. But already it's like super creepy.
Yeah, it's gonna be creepy, and my daughter, who has read a lot of the books, she said them Targaryens are some incest beasts. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to wind up happening. I
misspoke. It's Rhaenyra, not Rhaenyra.
Whatever.
Riri.
Yeah. So before they go out and deal with all this craziness that's in the streets ahead of the air tournament. He gives this speech, and then basically they just go out and start beating people up like the regular police now. They just go, and it's like, and this is what I was like, my note says, man, this has been a lack of blood, language, and sex up to this point, and that pretty much ended because it got super violent. Yeah, cutting off dicks and freaking heads and like all that. I was like, that, I mean, it just came out of nowhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you had just done whatever you had done up to that point, and then it just got like super violent, and that was not. I didn't like. Not that I didn't like it. Hodge, where are you at this 15-minute mark into this show?
I mean, I'm watching it. I just got out of the game session to watch it. I'm watching it, and I'm like, yeah, this is like PBS, and it's all all women. It's really PC. And then that came up. I'm like, whoa, it got dark.
Well, that didn't go over well with the King's Council. And they came and they were like, yo, your brother's wilding, man. He's wilding out in the streets.
What's up when they go balls in at the council table? What's that mean?
They was like, man, don't do that no more. Like, you got to get him to not do that. That's bad. He can't be just killing people and cutting off hands and murderers and
members.
That's bad. And so Damon has been presented. And you talk about them Russian things. I was like, okay, so this is our evil Joffrey for the season here. Like, is this what we're gonna do? I was like, but then he's kind of like, wrestling term, fuck Hulk Hogan, kind of like a cool heel too. So like, who's villain here?
Cool.
Like, I mean, he is. What, didn't you think so? He kind of looked like an elf.
I mean, they try, but then
he's
built worse than me. He can't get a nut, and he gets beat in the tournament.
Right.
That was my next note.
Okay, I guess he's the villain, but this is like AEW book, and they jobbed him out on it when he first got to the Federation. They jobbed him out, and now we're ready to tell his story.
Yeah, just put him in polka dots already.
Yeah, the Brothers Comics House of Dragons recap podcast sponsored by Blue Chew, which Damon clearly needs. He needed some help big time here, and there was some nudity there that came up, and they picked a lady that had no ass at all. Her ass was as flat as that book that they was written on. It was terrible. I was like, ooh, come on, because the Brother show was like, it had like naturally fully formed women, like that was part of the show, and it was like, who's this emaciated lady here?
Roz kicked it off the original
beautifully
series,
for sure.
This sorry Sonoya Mizuno.
Oh, is that who that was? Whatever. So we get to the tournament, and the queen is in labor. That's actually happening. He announces it to everybody, like, oh, the queen is in labor, hooray. And so we get the big jousting tournament. Again, something that seems, they're like, we're going to get a whole bunch of scenes from like the other show, like into the first episode. So whatever. So Prince Damon decides to fight, or to joust or whatever, and he gets involved in that. And
so yeah, he calls out. So Otto Hightower is the hand of the king.
And-
Clearly has beef with Damon.
Right.
So he calls out his son for the joust. He gets hit in the chest, and then he goes low blow on the horse. Looked like he killed the horse, but then they had to show the horse get up and walk away. Like, oh, don't worry, the horse.
Right. Yeah, you're right. No horse
The guy looked like he skated on his face for most of the thing, and then he was out. I will point out, since I think this is the expectation. So Viserys's wife, Emma Arryn, you may recall, would be related to John Arryn, whose death kicked off the original series.
Oh, okay.
They seem to have a close relationship with the Arryn family, because that's part of the beef that Hightower had. Was like, why don't you go like get your heir on in the Eyrie with your wife? And he's like, nah.
Yeah, okay, so because Damon is married off to
somebody in
the Vale.
Yeah, right? I think he's married to another one of the Arryn sisters, princes, queen. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, bitch, so much was.
And we get our random Shard and Storm shot there too of the kids sitting there. It's
weird.
I'm sorry. And
the funny thing is, like, the Targaryens look so unnatural. Like, that wig never looks good.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, you can't have black people. You can have these like albino looking alien people all over running the place, but no, you can't have black people. But if you do, they need to have white hair.
Yes, and then they're on the council. Like, he's on the council.
There's only one.
Well, yeah, but Bishop is on the council, but and he's just on.
I would assume he's the master of ships.
Okay.
Or
master.
Or the janitor.
Oh shit. So yeah. All right. So Lady Owl somebody gives her flower to some dude. And then we get this back and forth thing about the labor and
that's Alicent Hightower.
Okay.
She's the daughter of the hand of the king. Best friend of Rhaenyra.
Thank you.
Right.
That sounds very Wikipedia. Yes. Yeah, I thought there was gonna be some
they like each other a lot.
Some high lesbian action. They didn't do that. So they come and tell the king, like, yo, the baby is breached.
I'm surprised there wasn't, honestly. Other than they both acknowledge they're teenagers. So
the baby's breached. The baby is breached. Like, we're doing everything we can. Milk of the Poppy gets a shout. Was that Milk of the Poppy? And it's like, okay, well, we're giving her as much as we can, so the whole thing goes just back and forth in between what's happening at the tournament and what's going on with the wife. And they put the king in a position like, hey man, I mean, save your wife, or you can save the baby. But really, since you need an heir,
And she already told you she wasn't going to try again.
Yes,
so...
and he was like, it was kind of a rough watch of that, to be honest with you.
It was horrible. That was when I texted you guys, like, the tagline was like, oh, we're not going to depict. Apparently it was sexual violence to women, because forcibly pulling a child out of a woman's uterus, knowing it's going to kill her, is not sexual at all. There's no and just to go back to it and like, now let's zoom in on it. There was like more penetration in that, like they were like elbows deep in her like bloody wound. I'm like, you did not need to do this.
Let's show the first C-section ever that ever happened. And with the freak, I mean, it was rough there. It definitely felt a little bit dirty. Yes, and again, my note says I don't know why they did this, and then then it gets violent for no reason. Like, again, at the joust, it was like, I get off. No, we're just gonna go ahead and fight, and like ridiculously violent. It's like I lost, but he could have just been like, oh, beat the dude. Even like when Damon loses later, it's like, yield. Like, no, we gotta chop people's heads off. We gotta cut them in the face. It was like, come on, man! Like, this is the episode 1.
Yeah. And then like
they gotta bring us back. They gotta bring you back in. They gotta bring them last couple of seasons, the episodes were not violent. They were awful.
Yeah.
So they're trying everything to get you back in.
But I would say that the violence wasn't necessarily the hook of the original show. It helped, obviously, because that was part of it, because there was nothing like it on television. But it's come for the titty, stay for the drama. Like the stories were so well written, that's why you stayed around. It wasn't because of the violence.
And it served a purpose. Like you remember in the joust I feel like all I'm going to do during all these conversations is talk about the entire series. But if they're going to rip off scene by scene everything that they've done before, like the violence in the joust that preceded this was around the mountain. And it was building up the mountain as the monster heel. It served a purpose. This was just like, oh no, now we're going to cut people's faces open and chop off their lower legs, and then go back to those scenes and just and the idea that it was like interweaving the violence in the tourney versus the violence in the bedroom where she was getting murdered and having her baby drawn.
Right.
Like what?
It didn't work.
What are you trying to? I mean, you.
Yeah.
Very clearly are trying to show something here. It was awful.
Well,
it's Targaryen versus Targaryen crime, ain't it too? Ain't all these people Targaryen? During the tournament, they just had both sides kind of beating up on each other.
Well, those
were people. There was somebody from Dorne that was there, right?
Yeah. The dude that they were mooning over, aka the whatever. Loras Tyrell was from Dorne. There were the Baratheons was somebody that got fought. Somebody had a shield of the flayed man, which was the Boltons.
Oh yeah, Boltons.
And so it was all the usuals. As far as I knew, the only Targaryen that was in the tournament was Daemon. But they kept rolling out the flags, and the stag.
Well, that's the other thing too. That's the other thing too, that they just want to, when we get to the end there, they're gonna name drop everything and everybody. That's like, okay, remember, we are a part of this. This is the same family. So anyway, the baby is born. Yay! The wife is dead. Boo! And baby Balon or whatever, and and they're holding the baby there, and I assume the Meister or whatever. And then they're just like, oops. So the baby doesn't make it.
Yeah, like seconds later, it's, there's the funeral pyre. Oh, wait, there's a baby. Oh, wait, what happened?
Yeah. I mean, again, you don't hear and shit. Like I was like, what? Did the baby stop crying? Like, was this was it just already stillborn? Like, I don't really know what was happening there, but yeah. And so all the people on the council had left, because of what was going on. And then we get to the funeral scene. There's a bad joke here. They gave her the Black Goliath death there, from Civil War.
They didn't put her in chains.
No, well, that's fair. But the rest of it was, gets the Jedi Black Goliath death birth there all wrapped up. And the screeners, like if you were an official screener for this TV show, they were at least the screener was 6 episodes. So this must be kind of long, I would say, probably 10, 12. If the screener was 6, the screeners are usually a third or half of the show.
10 episodes, what it says.
10. So that says a lot to me. They were like, we gotta get all of this out there to see if there's any positive press on this, because there's a whole lot going on. So yes, baby's dead, mama dead, and the king is, obviously down. And so the hand of the king's job was like, hey man, I got this daughter that's freaking 13 or 15 years old.
Hey.
Yeah, go put on one of your mama's pretty dresses and
entertain the
make
king.
him feel good. Yeah, what in the world? Wait,
yeah, also not violence toward women.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this part is true, but yeah.
Well, and again, I understand where it is and where it's coming from, and it's also part of playing the Game of Thrones. Like, I mean, obviously the
hand of the king wants
the hand of the king
wants his hand on the throne.
Right, exactly. So like I get that part, but man, it's just and that becomes the thing too. Was the original show, and we're only talking 10 years ago, was the original show, how can we be talking about something as a product of its time that was only 10 years ago to start? You know what I'm saying? Like it,
The expose
we're not
song comes
talking,
up. Yeah,
which one is
seasons
that?
change.
You think?
Yeah,
I don't know.
things have really changed in the last 10 years.
Mm,
That's like this show is the Game of Thrones started off being very male driven, and women were pushed to the back and beat on and whatever. And then by the end of Game of Thrones, women were toward the front. This show started off with women toward the front.
Well, yeah, and the thing about it is, for me, is like on the face of it, the shows are overly violent, overly sexual, overly objectifying, clearly racist. But like they specifically said, acknowledge the rightful criticisms of the first show and be like, we're going to be better. We're not going to do that. Lie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem I have is like just
they put a layer of peanut butter on the toast.
Yeah. And I think it's even worse because I think that most of what we see in this episode is because it's expected, not because it serves the story, but because it's expected.
Right. And there's also too, you can't replicate, like, again, I do believe in this was a moment in time in terms of like when that show came out, that it was a phenomenon and you can't replicate that. Like you just can't do it. And you especially can't do it 3 years later. You got to at least let it breathe, let it live, let it die, and then kind of come back and try to revisit it. Like now this feels like Hutch said, a cash grab. And I don't know that people are overtly ready to jump back on, this boat to Westeros. Like I just don't know.
Here
like,
we
we're
are
doing it. Well, we're doing it for.
It took us a season. It took us a season almost before we figured out to do podcasts about it.
Right, but I just think that it's more so. I don't know. And again, we're judging the show based on a pilot. That's always tough. Pilots are always not always, but they rush everything in. You got to make sure it's got, to try to get people in. So I get that part.
This ain't a pilot, dude.
Kinda.
A pilot is, I would say, completely new and exciting stuff. This is a prequel. Right.
Prequels haven't had a lot of success. All right.
Right. Outside the Godfather.
It was in sci-fi and in comics and stuff.
In comics,
so they put some succession in place. For the Targaryens, they have to have this meeting with the king, who's still pretty fucked up by the whole thing. And Black Dye, married Targaryen dude, is like, he does have an heir. It's freaking, or a succession plan. It's his brother. It should be that, and his brother's actually watching this go on, or this meeting while it's happening, or listening to it, or whatever. And they're trying to get them to understand, like, look, you can't leave. We need some other plan besides that, because that dude, your brother's gonna like kill you, or somebody's gonna come up, take the throne, and we're gonna just be stuck. And he's gonna have all of these wars going to start with amongst the kingdoms or whatever. And somebody brings up the idea, bring your daughter. You have a daughter, make her the queen. And somebody's like, a girl. And you have that sort of back and forth through that whole argument about it. But I mean, you can kind of see that coming. They're building this girl up to be baby Daenerys. I mean, that's fairly obvious, right? I'm not crazy. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And I'd have to go back now, but I feel certain that Daenerys told a story about her grandmother or whatever. Because Viserys, her brother was Viserys III. So I think I don't know if it's grandmother or great grandmother, 172 years, probably great or great grandmother. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's this whole bit, about this, who's going, this succession plan. And after that, it turns out that, Daemon hears that he's going to do that, then we cut to an orgy scene. Oh, okay. Like, all right, this is what we're doing now. So we cut to this orgy scene where he doesn't really talk his freaking paperback girlfriend book girl, like kind of talks to him or whatever. But we don't see it, and it's like a cut scene where, hey, and then the hand of the king is like, I was at the whorehouse. Your brother said that he named your baby, what was it, the heir for a day or something like that, which really pissed off the king, and he brought him into the.
So he's Tommy Rich.
Stop. He was king for 5 days. That's terrible. That's awful. That's awful.
Well, I think it was one of the Baratheons. The shot was the queen who never was, right?
Oh yeah,
yes. That's right. Yeah, that's
parallel there. I think of.
Yeah,
I don't know why it was so there for a day. I don't know why
that pissed him off so much.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. When he lost his whole family, I guess that would be, something like that. He, did you say it? I don't really know if I did, but whatever. So after he berates him for doing that, and he says, "Go back to the Vale with your wife. You need to get the hell away from here." And then we get all these cut scenes where he's speaking to Rhaenyra. Fat man. Black people put
think of Panera. Panera bread.
Rhaenyra. That she's going to be the heir, and you see her getting all the dressing, and then you get the call back. There's the House of Dorne, and then the Baratheons, and all of these people saying that they're going to pledge their allegiance to the queen. That was kind of it. Tell her the story at the end about the coming of winter. Again, we got to tie this together. Also, we got to get the name of the book in, because that which was, I thought, was kind of weird too. Which they also did, remember, in the finale, where Tyrion gave him the book.
Yeah,
that was
it's called the Song of Fire, Ice and Fire.
Yes, like
it's written by Sam Tarley.
Yeah, Amazon.
Yeah, that was my Fleer Tops Ultra cards from that Fantastic Four cartoon. Anyway, so yeah, and she's like, you got to understand that this is happening. Like, this winter is going to happen, and the men of the world or whatever are going to have to unite together to fight against this unknown coming thing. And then the king is still bleeding. And we skipped the part there where they were examining the king. Does he have that shit that the Tarly cured? What's that?
No, that was grayscale. That was
grayscale.
That would have been hardened over. He's got some sort of leprosy.
Okay. I would call it.
Okay. And
some kind of itis.
Yeah.
And then that was it, really. The king, it ends on the king bleeding. And cut. That was it.
Yeah.
I don't know, y'all. I'll be honest with you. I mean, we made this commitment. We had a logo made to watch it. I'm perfectly fine with watching it. I'm perfectly fine talking about it. I'm perfectly fine shit talking it. Like, I'm perfectly fine with that. I just wanna be able to at least enjoy certain aspects of it without being mad all the time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how to describe. Like, I want to be able to watch this and could enjoy parts of it, and it's be okay with that. Like, oh, okay, that's bullshit, but at least this part was okay. That's kind of where I'm at.
This is going down Star Wars alley for me.
Prequels or post sequels?
Them prequels, those prequels, or anything after episode whatever 6, 7, 8, whatever. Well, I thought, I'm not a fan of Ewoks and all that stuff, but whatever, that was then. Then they go back, and this. I have my Star Wars of my 70s and early 80s is in my brain, and I will always love it. This stuff afterwards is and I'm in the world of with this. It look. I mean, you gotta watch it because we're invested. This is this is what brought us all together. So, but I'm afraid.
Like, who's the character that you latched onto and you can't wait to see their story?
Right.
I'm a Stark man. So
maybe Allison Hightower. I mean,
who I mean, it's a show also that you root for the villains too.
Right.
Are we gonna be cheering for Damon freaking
No, I mean, he'll
like Targaryen? I'm like, I can't see that happening.
he's Darth Vader.
Right, but I mean, it is a show that had some bad guys that you were okay with. Jamie Lannister is a bad guy, but people kind of liked him, because he had some likable features outside of incest and shit. But he still has some likable parts to him, like that. I mean, again, we're judging it on one episode. Like we're being nerds, but we've also been hurt. Okay, we've just been hurt.
They know what they did last summer.
Yeah, exactly. They know what they did to us too. And the idea that they think that they can just throw a dragon in the first scene and they're gonna make us think that we're gonna forget about it. That was intentional. And
they're trying to overcorrect and still be politically correct and do story correct and keep HBO happy. Good luck with all that.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, I'll watch it again. I don't, this is one of them things they're gonna be releasing every week. You gotta watch. They ain't dump a bunch of them. Damn, I would have preferred that. That's how I came to Game of Thrones. Late. That I was able, up to a certain point, I was just able to chunk watch. So we're gonna be week to week with this thing until we're not with it anymore, and we'll see how it goes. But I don't know, man. Do we have to put my daughter on this podcast because she read the book?
Oh,
no, she read the book though.
Right, she read the book, but she can't watch it, I believe.
I'll let her listen to this.
You're dropping bombs.
I'll let her listen to this, and then she can, tell me the parts and fill in the blanks for us. But
she's got a reputation to uphold.
Nah, I guess. All right. So that's it, y'all. Again, we're still an unnamed show. We'll figure out a name later on.
If you guys have a name,
let me know too, and we'll get that up and running, and then we'll be back. I think next week.
It's gonna be hard.
We got we got a couple of things coming up. We got Dragon Con coming up, and people taking some time off.
Football.
So we I thought the schedule I put, I think we were good for episodes 2, and then we had to double back for 3 and 4. I believe that's what it was, but I could be wrong. It might have been a double up for 2 or 3, but we'll figure it out. All right. So if you're listening to on the podcast version, as the Game of Thrones theme music starts to play us out, I'm the producer of this podcast, and I'm signing out. I am the best black dragon in the world.
Black dragon. Okay.
All right now.
All right now.
Damon Targaryen, build that army, baby.
Yeah. Grandmaster Beavis, sign off.
I'll see you next time. Hopefully we'll be more upbeat and more positive and find some nugget to seize upon and enjoy ourselves once again.
Yeah.
For the dance of wyverns. I mean dragons.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and sign off. Don't get fired.
Brothers Comics remembers. Yeah.
We've been hurt, y'all. We've been hurt. We'll see y'all on the other side. Peace, everybody.